Welcome to the future of education. And now, here's your host, Michael Horn.
Welcome to the future of education, where we are dedicated to building a world in which all individuals can build their passions, fulfill their potential, and live a life of purpose. And today we get to talk to two individuals who have put that work at the core of what they've been doing for years. I am tremendously excited about this. First up, we have my longtime friend. She's the founder, CEO of the Center for Education Reform. She's none other than Jeanne Allen. And of course, she has launched the Yass Prize for sustainable, transformational, outstanding, and permissionless education. We're going to hear a lot about that and more. But first, Jeanne, so good to have you here.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be here.
Absolutely. And we also have Anthony Brock, who is the co-founder and executive director of the Valiant Cross Academy, which sits in the heart of downtown Montgomery, Alabama. Anthony and I have already established that I owe him a visit at some point to those parts, but it's a private school with a Christian emphasis that serves males in the 6th through 12th grades. We're going to hear a lot more about it, but Anthony, notably, you all just won the Yass Prize, so welcome and congratulations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Honored to be here. Honored to be the current winner of the Yass Prize. So very interested in the conversation. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You bet. Well, frankly, I'm excited to have you here because if you win that prize, that means you're doing a lot right. And we're going to hear more about that. But Jeanne, let's start with you. Just thinking about the Yass Prize, I'm sure some of the listeners who tune into this podcast, they will know of it. But I'm sure some won't. We, of course, have had some past winners on this show, but I'd love to hear from you why this prize is so important right now, and why are these principles of, the STOP principles, right? Sustainable, transformational, outstanding, permissionless. Why are those so important and enduring right now?
Thank you, Michael. I'd like to say that we spent about 30 years at the Center for Education Reform building and demand that we open up the opportunities for parents, students, teachers to have access to better opportunities, new ways of doing business. But what we all realized very quickly, even though some of us knew it instinctually for a while, is that the supply, once we created that demand, once that demand was also augmented and amplified by things like COVID, the supply wasn't big enough. And so we went on a hunt for some organizations that we thought would be temporarily supporting and showing the way for all sorts of other schools to deliver for students post that awful time in history. And what we found is that there were thousands of organizations out there that had already been creating, not just during COVID, but before, creating new and different opportunities that wanted and needed a way to not scale, but to be, first of all, to be recognized for what they were doing. They don't go to those conferences and seminars that everybody else goes to. They don't have time. They're doing the work.
They're actually doing the work, yeah.
They're doing the work. And they don't read what we read because we're all so myopic. It's all we do. So we found out that they needed the encouragement. They needed the support network. Obviously, money is a huge driver. But what they really want is also this information and the movement that came when we began to put them together. And so the Yass Prize is now not just on the hunt for a handful, but we seek to find, reward, and celebrate education providers of every sector, regardless of profit motive or whatever, that stop for education.
That's super helpful, and putting it in context of the supply-demand imbalance in the country, I think is really important because people tend not to think about the supply side of this very much. I think you're right. And Anthony, I want to bring you in the conversation because I'm curious on your end, what were the steps that led you to decide, hey, we're going to apply for this prize. This is something that could really help us and elevate us.
Yeah, well, one of the things recently, Michael, I've been talking to a lot of people here in Alabama about is you need to attempt to apply, don't think that with the work you're doing, it's not worthy, because this time last year, I had no idea that we would even have the opportunity, because like she just said, we're busy doing the work, and it really felt good to be appreciated. I think I realized how enormous this prize was when I arrived in Cleveland. And I was a little shell shocked when I walked in, because I'm just not used to it. I've been a public school educator since 1999. My brother and I started Valiant Cross in 2014, we did a proof of concept year. And in 2015, we launched the school. But I'm used to just the run of the mill conferences that teachers go to, the same old, same old. And when I get here and I'm around all these new educational innovators across the country, my vision has been changed forever. And so, everybody talks about the $1 million, which is great. Please believe me, that's great. We needed that. However, just the social capital that I've been able to build through being a part of this Yass Prize is, you can't put a number on it. And so we started Valiant Cross in 2015. And, I would always encourage everybody to apply for this award.
So stay on that for a moment, because it's really interesting to hear you say the social capital that you got from this. I imagine that means everything from the networks of people that can support the work, to getting ideas from other schools that are doing, interesting things, to even perhaps being inspired to try out things that you never had considered. Like, what does that mean to you? And what are those benefits of that social capital that you gain access to?
Sure. So I'm an artist by trade also. And so I'm a visionary. I'm an artist. I never really even wanted to be a head of school. I just wanted to cultivate spaces where young people can thrive and learn. And so when I became a part of this cohort of Yass Prize finalists and semifinalists, like, it is full of just the most brilliant, innovative people you've ever seen before. And so when you think about permissionless, I've been sad to say, I've been almost in a shell thinking the work we're doing, we don't want too many people to see it, because they may come in and say, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. However, now I'm with a group of people who are saying, no, you need to do more. You can do more. Go forward with whatever that vision is that God has put before you, which for us is educating African-American young men. We're in Montgomery, Alabama, the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement. We're right across from Dr. King's church, the only church he pastored, right up the street from Rosa Parks bus stop. So why do we have to operate inside of a box when so much change came from Dexter Avenue, like the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement? So now it's, what more can we add to what we're doing with these young men? All of our young men, we've had 2 graduating classes. They're all either at a 4-year college, they're all at either a trade or vocational school, they're in the military, and we have a few who've just joined the workforce right out of high school, just through some of the offerings, which we can go into as much as you want, but it's just exciting to be on this call, first of all. And I want to say this. Whatever it is that God put in your heart, it's a reason, and a reason that he put it there. And so I'm so happy that I listened to that first call, which is to start school, and that second call, which is to apply for the Yass Prize as well.
It's pretty powerful, because, Jeanne, you and I know we travel around the country speaking at all sorts of, testimonies in capitals around the country and so forth. And, what Anthony just said is the truth, right? Which is that a lot of the most innovative schools have been taught to sort of duck and cover, because they don't know when they're going to get shot for, doing something that is outside the box that kids need, but it doesn't fit inside, the narrow walls of what we've been told school looks like. And it sounds like maybe this prize really starts to give them not just permission to do the educating, but permission to talk about it and inspire even more school leaders and school types that you're going to build a legacy, almost a family tree, if you will, Anthony, out of this. How do you see that part of it, Jeanne?
Well, I will say that I think it's also done the same for advocates, researchers, and people who work in the field, because they're being able to put their head up and expose what they're doing, right? And share and build awareness about what they're doing, which, by the way, I can say on Anthony's behalf and others, nobody really thinks they're doing great things. I mean, it was extraordinary to talk to them during the process, or look at their application, or ask questions. And at one point in time during the process, as we're whittling down from quarterfinalists to semifinalists, we do interviews with everybody like this. And you'd say, well, tell me more about why you're doing such breakout things. And they're like, am I really doing amazing things? I mean, I've literally never met so many, as Anthony said, thoughtful, brilliant, open-minded, people who wanted to be sponges. I'm used to, be honest with you, I'm used to being around a bunch of people who think they know everything. And I will also admit candidly that I get into that. I'm like, oh, I already know this is happening. I know what's happening in Alabama. I don't have to go to Alabama. Someone will tell me if I have to know something. Well, the fact of the matter is, when you see the work that organizations like Valiant Cross are doing, or Melanin Village in Princeton and all around the country, or any number of the groups that are in the cohort and that didn't make it in that are still extraordinary. And then you actually see it and look at who they're helping and look at what's happening around them. And then you say, why is everyone ignoring them? So we went to Valiant Cross. We do these road shows after our awards each year. And we did the announcement of the 24 Yass Prize at Anthony's school in January. And the governor, who knows about them, had never been there. And she came that day. But why hadn't she been there? She's 3 blocks away. Like, it's not her fault necessarily. Maybe we didn't invite her. Maybe there was no reason. But then again, it is her fault, right? I love her. But let's be honest. I mean, I don't know her enough to love her. But why wasn't she and her people right there across the street from Martin Luther King's church? Mm-hmm. So I think, to the extent that we're all thinking that someone's going to tell us something really good is happening, is now we're actually making it much more of a requirement that anyone in this work start looking at under places. Don't just show up at conferences and think you're going to meet everyone you're supposed to meet, because probably likely the people at those conferences aren't nearly as cool as the people doing the work.
Yes. And one thing we forgot to add also is right across the street is the Alabama Education Association, which is a very strong teacher union in the state of Alabama. So they sit right across the street as well. So add to the irony.
We love irony here. We'll leave it at that at the moment, but let's get into the work itself and what the school looks like, and start to give us an understanding of what you've been doing that stands apart. And I guess I want to start at maybe a higher level before we get into the sort of what the day of a life of a student looks like. And as I understand it, you all have been really intentional about preparing students for the careers of tomorrow. And that means computing, e-gaming, robotics, and more. What does that look like in action? How do you pick these careers? What's the role of partners in that? What does this part of it look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually are in meetings right now with my leadership team to even custom make that more. When you think about the permissionless part, we have decided to not only have career tracks that we have already. So we have Cisco networking. Of course, we have the dual enrollment with some local universities. We have barbering, we have welding. But now we are interested in, of course, putting all of our 11th graders on a track. But the next step to that is to find out what each one of them wants to do by their 10th grade year, and custom making everybody. The IEP in the traditional school is an individualized education plan, where we're going to try to have that, where we will have that for each one of our young men going forward. So if you want to be an attorney, if you want to be a police officer, whatever it is, we're going to custom make that. And that, think that thought process would not have been my thought process right now if I had not seen so many other innovative models. We got to get them out of the classrooms that we've had them in up to this point from 7:30 to 3:15. So not only has the Yass Prize allowed us to take a step back and pat ourselves on the back for the work we're doing, it's also made us say, hey, let's keep thinking, let's keep pushing the mark a lot. But the biggest part of Valiant Cross, which I always have to mention, the importance of the fact that in Montgomery, we have 200,000 residents, and we're averaging about 70 to 75 homicides a year. So the most meaningful work we're doing is taking these African-American boys and we're giving them hope. And that's what we really pride ourselves in, telling them, not just telling them, but telling them and showing them that we love them. We're going to walk through whatever it is they want to do. If it's college, if it's military, we want to see them to and through those areas as well. So we've created a support system like none other for these young men. And it's the amazing work that my staff does every day.
There's so much there to love. And the way you make these individuals feel that and show them that they really matter and that their dreams count is powerful. I want to get into then the actual educational model itself, because I understand you're doing a bunch of innovative things here. we know, Jeanne referenced COVID, right? We know that the readiness level of students is frankly all over the map at the moment as they come into these experiences. And we also know that there's been renewed interest across the country in differentiating instruction, tutoring, all the things. But my understanding is that you all have been successful in that personalization. You called it customization just now, in terms of incorporating tutoring and doing a bunch of stuff like that. I'd love you to just talk about what that model looks like. What does a student's experience look like? And what are tips for all the other schools that frankly have been struggling to get the tutoring piece right, that they could learn from you on?
Yeah, well, the most important thing is the adults that you have in the building. It takes, being a private school, we have the opportunity to sit down with an adult and become a career counselor, like Steve Perry always says, and say, hey, this is not the place for you. If you're not here for young people, it's not going to work. So it looks basically, Michael, like our teachers are staying after hours. They're coming early in the morning to tutor. We also partner with a local tutoring company here in Montgomery, and they provide tutoring through our young men throughout the day. But we have a 15-to-1 or less ratio for all of our young people in the school. The next step to that is we're going to be adding a teacher aide in each classroom to help with instruction as well. We just went through a round of applicants, and it's booming at the seams, by the way, Ms. Allen. It's like never before. We have so many young people that are trying to come into school, and it's because they want that individualized touch. Our teachers are literally going to basketball games. And this is basic stuff, right? But they're doing the basic things at a high level. So we're going to basketball games after school with our young people. We're going to church with them. Last week, I got a call to take them to this new whitewater rafting place in Montgomery. I don't have to ask for permission to do any of that. But when you build that relationship with these young people, which a lot of them come with thick discipline files, they come with IEPs, a lot of them are behind 2-3 grade levels when they get there. And so everybody's saying, how in the world are you guys doing this? And when they come in and see all the young men working, it's about love and high expectations. That's the secret sauce of Valiant Cross Academy. And it's about, like I said, customizing what each one is going to do by their 11th grade year. The connectivity is the most important part. If young people, especially African-American males, feel a connected part that we give them at Valiant Cross, they seem to thrive. We've also created an African-American Male Experience Museum at our school. So all of them, all the artwork and the pictures throughout the building, it mimics them. So there's culturally relevant teaching going on. We believe that if they have a strong sense of who they are in God and who they are personally, then they're going to succeed in life.
I also have to jump in, Michael,
Please.
If it's okay to say something that you've often talked about. Even things that are basic can be innovative because they're not being done anymore or in the same way. And being able to think about each individual student every day and what they happen to need is important. When we were there, I'll just add one other thing I noticed, which I love about your educational model, Anthony, but you guys were talking about in the hallways, we were walking and touring a couple of different kids and what was happening with them, right? These are things, again, great schools do this. But we prevent them from doing it by putting too many strings on them and not rewarding it. But I walked into every class and there's music and the teacher has a headset, but there's different music in every class. And so finally I had forgotten to ask him, and we saw him recently, and he said, there's data that shows that these students will let you tell them. But it was fascinating how much people were paying attention and engaged. And the teacher was calling them out also, by the way. So she's got the music, she's got the headset, they're doing something, and there's a way that she gets them and pulls them out of what they're doing to reflect. Talk about that, Anthony.
Yeah, so we do a 2-week teacher training on that. The teacher is actually on stage at Valiant Cross. We don't have traditional desks, so you have to be in shape, first of all. But yeah, they do have the headsets, they have the music. There are a lot of studies around musical education and what it activates in the brain for young people. And we've customized playlists to each classroom. So you're getting a different feel, a different vibe, even the way the classroom looks. And I didn't go into, when you talk about innovation, Chuck Robbins, who is the national CEO for Cisco Networking, he spoke at our fundraiser last year, and he came and he gave us $500,000 for our networking, our programming credential networking program that we have at our high school as well. So every young man has the opportunity to do that. We've partnered with the Red Tail Scholarship Foundation. We have about 8 to 10 of our young men right now. Some have already completed it, but we have about 8 to 10 in the cohort now working on their pilot's license. Only 2% of African-American males are pilots. And again, we have the barbering credential. A lot of them are leaving every day to go to Trenton State Technical College to get different trades, whether it's welding. We have one working on the CDL license. So it's it is a lot of innovation going on. But to me, because of the passion that I have for it, my dad passed in 2022. He was an educator, a principal, pastor as well. So a lot of that is just naturally who we are. You want to see young people. If you want what's best for young people, there's nothing that you won't do for them. There's no. That's why the Yass Prize has helped as well, because I'm someone who has an open ear. So when I'm around, I'm a sponge. Like if it's a best practice that another member of the cohort's doing, I'm going to try to take it. I'm going to use it. I've been talking to Keith Brooks about working with Black and Latino males. And so we're looking at hopefully partnering to bring that down here to Montgomery as well. I would love to start a Center for Urban Education where you can come and learn some culturally relevant pedagogy.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. That music sounds amazing. And I saw research coming out around how actually when we're also in music with each other, we start to synchronize and cooperate, and it's sort of something inside of us innate, right? Where we want to work with each other, and it makes us more open to ideas and cooperation and building on each other.
Sure, absolutely. And the other part is, you have to look at the national suspension rates in different states for African-American males. It's pretty high. And so we have a environment of culturally relevant restorative practices as well. So we do circles if they get in any type of trouble, which may just be talking at the wrong time. Everything it's structured, it's organized chaos in the building. I'll just say that because it may look like things are out of whack sometimes, but we do that to get them up and moving. But we really do not like to suspend anyone because that's what oftentimes young men are used to, people giving up on them. And so I need you in the seat and I need you learning, I need you engaged. And so a lot of that is what takes place on a daily basis. It takes an act of Congress to get suspended at Valiant Cross.
Wow. One of the things that occurs to me hearing you talk is, you're a little bit like the fish that doesn't realize it's in water because that's just the milieu in which you're swimming. And so, Jeanne, I love, from your perspective, you look at like the list of semifinalists and finalists for the Yass Prize. They are incredibly inspirational. They're all amazing. What made, the work that Anthony and his school doing stand out from your perspective? What was it that like, wow, yes, this is the one that's going to win this $1 million Yass Prize?
I mean, after they went through all the judging and consistently came out on top with a variety of different reasons, commentary and scores, you just look and you go, sustainable. Talk about policy, right? They can operate because they're in a state where there is at that time, some small scholarship program, now a larger one that's been set up to help schools like that help. So students don't have to go beg and he doesn't have to go beg for funds from everybody, or at least less so. Transformational, all the things he just described, outstanding. Look, you talk about students in his area that are getting shot, right? They're coming from homes. You don't know what they had the night before or the week before or what they're going home to. And yet the education's outstanding across the board and permissionless. And you just say the plight of Black men in America and the fact that there's someone doing something about that wants to do more, learn more, go bigger places, do different things. The sky is your kind of limit. Really kind of all added up. Now, we could say, again, Anthony's amazing and Valiant Cross is amazing and Valiant Cross is the winner, right? But there are a lot of organizations it fits. And there's something about people who go through the process, stick with the process, make the argument that we're always shocked when they all come together. We're like, oh my gosh, we had no idea they'd be like this. I mean, they get to the accelerator, Michael, which you participated in, and they start, hey, can I get your number? That was really interesting. I thought wow, I didn't know you went through that. And so It is that social capital and that networking. We all take it for granted because we're in it every day. But they've made us better people and they've made us think differently and better about our jobs and our work and our goals and strategies and frankly, more accountable because we want to make sure they succeed.
Wow. Anthony, my understanding is that winning this is going to allow you all to expand to even more men Black men in Montgomery. You're going to be able to add an elementary school, grades K through 5. You're going to be able to start to expand to different states, I think. Talk to us about what this is going to enable you to do and what we can expect in the years ahead from expansion.
Sure. So the first thing was, again, the elementary school. We announced the same day that we announced the Yass application that we are opening up our new kindergarten. So we're in the process now of finalizing a building, which is also on the Civil Rights Trail. We're trying to keep that same model going. And so that'll open up this fall. We're visiting Jackson, Mississippi next month. That's one of the places that we're very interested in. But now I'm interested in other places in in Alabama as well. So I'm interested in Tuskegee, obviously, because of the work that Booker T. Washington did. That was transformational back in the 1800s. And so the other part was, like I spoke about, possibly creating a center for urban education where we can recruit more Black male teachers. Most Black boys do not. They grow up all the way through kindergarten through 12th grade, and they're not seeing anyone that looks like them. And so just to have that person and that representation in the classroom will be huge. And also being a center where others can come train. You may not be a Black male teacher or a Black female. You may be a white teacher who wants to just come learn to train. How do I teach these young people that are in front of me? How can I relate to them? So those are a few of the things and a few of the areas that we're looking at. And also, which I have not spoken to Ms. Allen about, we are also launching out a new literacy center here in Montgomery. And so we have started building out a new literacy center, which will combat mentoring and the literacy rate over in West Montgomery, which is where a lot of these young people come. That will allow us to impact way more young people, male and female, than just at Valiant Cross Academy. So a lot of exciting things. I'm a full-time college student as well, but we're getting it all in.
Are you really?
Yeah. Yes, I'm working on my doctorate right now, and I'm in my dissertation phase. So just keep me in your prayers, both.
Man, I will. I don't wish that process on anyone, if I'm being totally honest. But I'm just curious. So let's shift to policy, because you both have brought it up now a couple times, and I think this is a nice place to maybe wrap, because as you know, Alabama's governor recently signed the Choose Act, creating education savings accounts in Alabama. $7,000 per pupil starting in 2025. Jeanne, what do you anticipate this is going to do for innovation and education in the state of Alabama?
It's definitely going to encourage more people and more groups to expand to offer students an opportunity. I wish it were bigger. I understand politics and people have to start smaller. But when you look at the numbers in Montgomery and elsewhere across states like Alabama, every state, frankly, we could blow it open. It's all right. We'll get there. But what it really does say more than anything else is money should follow students. We're not going to rely on private organizations to have to raise money to fund scholarships. Why are we making people jump through hoops when the public funding is available for these students who are no longer in the traditional public schools, who aren't serving them? And so what it does for opportunity and innovation is it allows people to appreciate and recognize that these elements are critical to students, and it shouldn't matter where you go to school. Money should follow kids.
Anthony, more broadly, and if you want to comment on this as well, great. But more broadly, as you think about the education policy context, how it's impacted the work you do in Alabama and the students you serve, as well as how you think about expansion into other states. You just mentioned Mississippi. I'm sort of curious, how do you think about education policy context from what it's allowed you to do and what it might enable you to do as you think about other states?
Sure. Well, the first thing that comes into play when you think about scaling to other states is, how are we going to fund the school? And that's quite frankly, that's how we have to spend almost 50 to 60% of our time right now. And so just the new ESA that's passed, just the School Choice Act, all these things are allowing us to be able to put our focus where it needs to be, which is on young people. So there is, who better than the parent to determine what's the best place for my kids? I know I'm able to do that. And because your zip code should not determine where you go to school. And so I'm excited about it. I think the status quo in education is what's dumbed down education so much, because we're not competitive enough. So it should not be a threat to anyone. If you're educating young people at a high level, you should welcome this. And you should not be afraid of young people leaving your school either. So,
love it. Love it. As we just wrap here, I'd love... so much is singing to me on what you're doing, Anthony. And I just love reflections from both of you about where this all goes, how we keep building this movement, how we keep building up supply to match the demand of these learners, as you mentioned, both of you, in places like Montgomery that are clamoring for something else. What are the next steps ahead? Jeanne, why don't you go first, and then Anthony, you can get final word.
I think looking at schools not only like Valiant Cross, but all the other kinds of organizations that are innovating and trying to meet students where they are, regardless of space and place. So whether they're micro schools, private, charter, online, blended, some name that we don't even know, it's essential that we bottle and market the excitement and the exuberance that's out there right now for making change. And what I see today more than ever before is a pent-up demand that is dying to get out among so many more diverse players in every kind of genre that want to get together. And that's critical. It's no longer about politics. It's no longer about, it is for some people, but for the people involved, like they are thousands strong in every state, and they could completely take over if they just put their minds to it.
Anthony, final word.
My final word is, again, I'm thankful for being on this call. Thank you to the Yass Prize for creating an environment for best practices, schools that are doing things that are outside of the box. And so I really appreciate that, because it gives us all a place. You almost felt like you were an outlier for a while, or the tipping point. Not to quote two Malcolm Gladwell books, but that's my guy. But that's what it feels like. I think I look at the Yass Prize as an outlier, and I think that like everyone needs to just join and become a part of it. I would like to see people who are traditional schools, public schools. I would like to see more of them to just open up their ears and see, like, what are they talking about? They're talking about kids. Remove the policy, remove everything else from it. We're talking about kids, and so I love it because everything I've heard since I've become a part of this movement is what's best for kids. And so they're celebrating organizations who are for kids. So thank you.
Hey, I'm just thankful for both of you, the work that you're opening up, the work that you're doing on a daily basis, and just really appreciative of you joining the future of education and making sure that each child, each student can make progress, because that's what it's about at the end of the day. So thank you to you both. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. We'll be back next time on The Future of Education.